Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Sure Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamini Tapaharini. So we were discussing the 12th Sutra, Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tan Nirodha. That means the vrittis can be taken care of, or vrittis can be controlled or stopped. The vrittis, the five types of vrittis which we discussed in the previous class. The last vritti we discussed was Nidra vritti. Before that, we had discussed Pramana vritti, Viparyaya vritti, Vikalpa vritti, Nidra vritti, and Smriti vritti. So these are the five types of waves of the mind. They have been classified. Vritti means, actually, literally, it means a whirlpool. So, on the chitta, mind stuff, these vrittis are responsible for what we are. It's vritti which decide how we think. It's vrittis which decide what our karma is. It's vrittis which directly or indirectly influence our actions. And again, it is the vrittis which can free us from bondage. As Thakur used to say, we use a one thorn to remove the other thorn. The thorn that has gone deep into our foot, we use the other thorn. We use a certain kind of vrittis, positive vrittis, to uh, negate, to negate the vrittis which are causing us pain. The klishta vrittis are to be uh, replaced by aklishta vrittis, by prayer, by japa, by various sadhanas. And that is the main purpose of sadhana, to have a control over our own mental vrittis, and finally controlling them. So how to control them? The 12th sutra says Abhyasa Vairagya, through Abhyasa and Vairagya. We discussed what is Abhyasa. By practice of a constant stream of positive thoughts, preferably a holy name or some prayer which has the capacity to negate the influence of the bad vrittis, the vrittis of vikalpa, the vrittis of viparyaya. Viparyaya is wrong knowledge, as I said. Vikalpa is wrong understanding, wrong verbal understanding, verbal delusion. Somebody says something and we understand it in a different way. So they are also vrittis. Each of these vrittis are can be pain bearing and can cause problems. So yoga teaches us to first counter these vrittis with positive vrittis, abhyasa, that is abhyasa, and vairagya. Vairagya enables us to see that these vrittis, the vrittis of vikalpa, or till we control them fully, the vrittis of vikalpa, viparyaya, smriti, especially if it is a bad smriti, memory, all these things can be controlled by non-attachment. At least we can prevent further vrittis from forming. So that is why vairagya is, or non-attachment is prescribed, and we don't instigate our mind to create newer and newer vrittis which are painful, because every experience, the more the experiences, the more the chances are that we have the viparyaya vritti or the vikalpa vrittis, and even the smriti vritti, which is nothing but the reaction or trying to bring the past into the present. based on previous experience. If we had bad experiences, if we had good experiences, you bring those back as uh, Ishopanishad say, Krito Smara, remember your good deeds, remember your good thoughts. So all our good memories can be brought back into consciousness. So those smritis are good. But the smritis which remind us of our weakness, remind us of our delusion, remind us or create a chain of vikalpa and viparya vrittis in our mind, which is imaginary. No doubt it is imaginary. But these imaginary vrittis can create havoc. I understand if the vrittis are based on real experiences, real bad experiences, which are being felt right now. If we experience something bad, naturally, as a reaction, our reactive mind will give rise to troublesome or painful vrittis. But if we uh, use our smriti, or if we use the bad smritis which we have, then we are bringing the suffocation, the difficulties or the depressions of the past to the present, and that is not advisable, because as the English proverb goes, sufficient unto the day, it's a biblical proverb, the evil thereof. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. In the mind, what it really means is that we have enough problems of today. So there's no need to bring back into memory all the problems of our previous days, previous lives. But since they are in the form of, they are there in the chitta in the form of samskaras, they have a tendency to rise up when we least expect it. We have enough problems, sufficient unto the day, the problems, the evil thereof. We have enough evil things, samskaras to deal with for the time being, for the present. So why drag the past into the present and create more problems? Things which have passed long ago or things which have not happened, the past smritis will give rise to future, the waves or anxiety or worry for the future. Things which may never happen in our life or things which might have happened in the past, and we imagine that the same thing may happen. So these old vrittis, they keep on coming. And those smriti vrittis are bad. But if there are some good memories, like you have company of holy men, M used the old smritis to good effect. In fact, the whole of gospel was written by him primarily to meditate on the old scenes after the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna. He spent nearly 30 years to till 1930, or even more than 30 years, to take out his old diary, meditate on each scene, and recreate the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. So he recreated the vrittis of the past which had gone by, the wonderful time he had with Sri Ramakrishna, and the wonderful gospel that he heard. He tried to compile it using his memory and using the meager notes which he made in the diary. If you have seen the diary of M, you will wonder how he could recapitulate or try to remember every dialogue, every scene as if he is seeing it in the present. So that kind of vrittis, or that those kind of vrittis are good, because the whole purpose of gospel was when Sri Ramakrishna would not be there, when he missed Sri Ramakrishna, he would reminisce, he would read his reminiscences or the notes that he had made when he met Sri Ramakrishna. And those resulted in the publication of the gospel. And it is a boon to the entire humanity. Because of his photographic memory, his wonderful description, we get the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. So abhyasa means practicing those vrittis again and again, trying to think of the good thoughts of the past, the good memories of the past. If that smriti is used, then smriti with vritti can be positive and helpful. So the mind to have non-attachment, vairagya, it must be clear, good and rational. We have to distinguish between Nitya, Nitya, Vastu, Viveka. As Sri Ramakrishna used to always say, that he used to tell every devotee who came to him, four things are necessary. First is Nirjan Vas. Why did he say Nirjan Vas? Going into solitude now and then. The reason why he said about solitude is that in solitude, you don't, you can only live with your own old memories. You don't bother yourself with people and create new samskaras and new memories or new thoughts. New vrittis are prevented because you are cut off from the world. You are alone. You are trying to meditate to yourself. At least things of the past may haunt you, but no more samskaras, new samskaras can be avoided, at least during the period of solitude. So that is one thing. So we have to practice non-attachment by, as Sri Ramakrishna said, first going into Nirjan Vas, then Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka. Mind must be clear and good and rational. Nitya means that which is temporary has to be discarded. That which is permanent is to be encouraged or remembered. For example, Sri Ramakrishna or any other Ishta whom you remember, whom you consider as Sat Chit Ananda, which is eternal existence, eternal knowledge, or eternal consciousness, eternal bliss. So when we consider our Ishta, the God whom we worship to be eternal, remembering him, remembering his divine Leela, constitutes Viveka. Nitya, Anitya Vastu Viveka. Anitya means that which is temporary. For the time being, at least when we do Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka, we try to not to think of the Anitya. We think only of the Nitya. The Nitya, that is the Sat aspect of the Lord, Chit aspect of the Lord, or the Chit means consciousness, and Ananda aspect of the Lord. So when we meditate on God as having these qualities of eternal nature, then we are holding on to the eternal. So our mind creates the vrittis of the eternal Brahman or eternal Satchidananda, who has graciously come in the form of our Ishta. So that is what is meant here when the mind should be good and rational and clear. So the mind should be clear that as far as possible, remembrance of God helps us not only to prevent thoughts from coming, but trying to suppress or trying to destroy the negative thoughts which are causing havoc in our life, like the Viparya and the Vikalpa vrittis, which come now and then. The reactive mind, manas, if we allow the chitta to take the form of the reactive mind, if we don't use the buddhi, where the mind is clear, good, and rational, and create very carefully positive thoughts with the help of japa, mantra, prayer, and other sadhana. If we do that, we help, we make the maximum of the nirjan vas or solitude. Otherwise, if you go to solitude and start thinking about the past, start thinking about the depressions, the anxieties, the confusions, the vikalpa and the viparya vrittis which you had in the past, and continue to have them in solitude, then the purpose of solitude is lost. So solitude is itself is not enough. Solitude, nirjan vas, and nitya nitya vastu viveka. But how to do it? So that is why third thing which Sri Ramakrishna says is satsanga. So to practice, we should now and then have some kind of holy company, people who remind you of God. Holy company can be books also. If you constantly read good books, you are, in fact, when you read the gospel, you are in the company of Sri Ramakrishna. You take yourselves back, say 150 years ago when Sri Ramakrishna lived and M recorded all this conversation. You literally go back to that age and you try to relive those experiences. He has given such a beautiful word picture of the incidents that happened, the teachings he, the words that he spoke. So they form a wonderful satsanga if you don't have Sri Ramakrishna in the present. Or you can have holy men who, company of holy men who always talk to you these things about practice, about abhyasa. So why should we practice? Why should we have abhyasa? Because each action, according to Swamiji, is like a pulsation quivering on the surface of a lake. So every time you create a vritti, when the vibration dies out, the vritti dies out, then samskaras remain. So there is a danger, the samskaras that we form, if they are of the vikalpa and the viparya and the wrong smritis, they will leave deeper impressions and which increase the possibility of those vrittis to come back. When a large number of these samskaras or impressions are left on the mind, they become a habit. The samskaras, when there are large number of negative waves are there, then worrying, anxiety, they become a habit. So Swamiji said habit is second nature, people say, but it is first nature. According to Swamiji, it is not only second, but it is first nature. And it's everything, the whole nature of man. That is why everything that we are is a result of the habits that we cultivated. If we cultivate good habits, that's why Nama Japa. So the fourth thing Sri Ramakrishna says is Nirjanvas, solitude, Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka, a very rational and clear mind. Then Nam Japa or practice, so Abhyasa and Vairagya. Vairagya is facilitated by Nirjanvas and Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka. Then you know what is not eternal, what is eternal. Then you giving up the non-eternal, the thing which is temporary, which will not last long. That is Vairagya. Vairagya simply means not getting attached to things which are not going to last and which when they go make us sad. So if we hold on to non-eternal things, we feel a great sense of loss when we lose those things. So that is why we have to practice the eternal, practice the name of God so that we remember His eternal nature now and then and create a large number of impressions, habits. So the doing of japa is a very important habit. It may appear as a mechanical thing, just going on doing the same name again and again and again. What in fact we do is we create the whole, we create a new habit to replace our old bad habits. So all those, Swamiji says, we should console ourselves that if we are what, because of our bad habits of the past, because of the bad samskaras of the past, then we can unmake it anytime. And this can be unmade or this can be countered by continuous japa, by positive. That is the only reason why uh, people are told to patiently go on repeating the Lord's name. The effect will not be felt immediately, but as we go on doing, whenever we get a chance and we create this habit of doing japa, if it becomes a habit, it is a continuously, if you do, we create a very powerful habit which is able to overcome or negate the influence of the negative habits. So that is next. So each vibration, good or bad, each one of them leaves a result. So our character or our nature is transformed. It is the sum total of all these impressions. And whatever wave predominates and prevails, our mind takes up that nature or that tone. If continuous waves of anxiety come, we become anxious. So our nature is what our thoughts are. So nature changes. So you can't condemn a person by saying he is bad natured. He may be bad natured, but if that is because his bad habits, eh, because of his bad habits or wrong thinking or faulty thinking, because of lack of vairagya and abhyasa, he has created so many bad samskaras that he appears to be a bad man or a bad person. But the same bad person, if he changes his habits, then the character, which is the sum total of all these samskaras, create certain positive waves always, and those positive waves prevails. The good prevails. One becomes good. If wicked waves or the waves of vikalpa and viparya prevail, then one appears to be evil or wicked. In joyfulness, one becomes happy. So Swamiji says, he finally concludes this sutra by saying the only remedy for bad habits is counter habits. And if the bad habits have left and only the good impressions are controlling our nature or our behavior, then you may say the character is transformed. Now, how to do it? The third sutra tells us how to create these counter habits or how to do abhyasa and vairagya. We just now discussed the efficacy or the importance of abhyasa, repeated practice, and what is abhyasa and what is vairagya. Tatra sthitau yatno abhyasah. So abhyasa is again defined. What do you mean by practice? Tatra sthitau yatno abhyasa. To remain in that calm state, to remain attached to the Ishta, to remain connected with or feel the presence of Satchidananda or your own Ishta is abhyasa. Tatra sthitau, that in that position or in that connection, you enjoy a kind of permanent connection. That is, and the effort which goes to establish that connection and continue to be connected to the Lord or feel the presence of Lord. Continuous struggle to keep the vrittis perfectly restrained and focus on one vritti is known as practice. Tatra sthitau yatno abhyasa. What is practice? The attempt to restrain the mind from in the chitta form to prevent its going out into waves. So the lesser the number of waves, lesser or the same wave which if it is again and again encouraged, like Nama Japa, we repeat the same name again and again and again till only one wave, succession of waves remain. That helps to destroy or to contain the negative waves. So to prevent it from going out and becoming negative waves, abhyasa is required. Tatra sthitau, to be in that state, the effort that we take by constant repetition of certain thoughts is abhyasa. Then in the fourth verse, satu, that is also dirgha kala nairantarya satkara sevito dhrida bhumi. So that habit becomes firmly grounded. Dhrida bhumi, bhumi means ground. Firmly ground. Dhrida means firmly grounded. You see, a person when he says his character is firm, means you can predict his character. You know how he will behave. So he will not tell a lie like Yudhishthira. Truthfulness was dhrida bhumi with him. It was so firmly ingrained that even by mistake he would not be forced to tell a lie. So also the other habits, the other qualities, the other mental waves. When we establish ourselves uh, continuously satu dirgha kala for a long time. So japa has to be done or the positive thoughts have to be thought for a long time. Or this practice of controlling the thoughts has to be done for a long time. Dirgha kala, for a long time. Nairantarya means continuous. Continuous means there is every possibility. Revered Swami Vireshwaranand used to say that many times we forget. Whenever we forget, we have to again remember. So that is Nairantarya. Antar, without Nirantara, from Nirantara, the word Nairantarya has come. Nirantara means without any antara, without any gap. You finish one japa, then immediately after the end of that japa, another japa comes. So there is dirgha kala. For a long time you are doing japa. How are you doing? You are doing it nairantarya, non-stop. You go on and on and on and on and on. Satkara Sevito. Satkara Sevito means with great love. This is very important. With lot of emotional attachment. It should not be mechanical. Just doing it for a long time without continuously will not help. There should be that feeling or that Satkara Sevita. Satkara Sevita Dhrida Bhumi. Then it becomes firmly grounded. When we love the repetition of the name, Sri Ramakrishna used to say that repetition of the divine name or japa is like the medicine. And normally people don't like to take medicine. That's why they don't get cured. But somehow he said, if you somehow like the medicine, if you love the medicine, then there is hope of recovery. So also our minds do not like to practice this japa and the other sadhanas. That is because it becomes too mechanical. That's why satkara sevita means with great love you have to serve that thought, serve that name, repeat that name. You have to say uh, Om Namah Shivaya, not me but only Shiva, not me but only Shiva. Namaha, I worship only Lord Shiva who is my Ishta, or any other Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So the more you repeat, the more you do it with love, not just say Sri Ram Jai Ram or something like that, Om Namah Shivaya. These are all mantras. These are mantras without the bija, but still they are very effective. They are like small prayers. The constant repetition of prayer with lot of love, praying to the Ishta to for him to shower his grace upon us, his or her grace, depending on which Ishta we pray to. So Dirgha Kala, for a long time, it becomes firmly grounded by long constant efforts with great love for the goal to be attained. It we have to love the goal which we are trying to reach, whether you call it freedom, whether you call it realizing Brahman, or whether you call it becoming free or attaining moksha. We have to love that goal. We have to really feel the bondage of this world. That is vairagya. When we feel the bondage of the world, then only we will love something which is eternal, eternally existent, eternally conscious, and eternally blissful. Once we get a slight taste of the japa, as Sri Ramakrishna said, once we like the taste of medicine, somehow, by Guru's grace or by the grace of the Lord Himself, if He uh, showers His grace upon us, then we start loving Him and His name. And we think that is the most important occupation of our daily life. We will do other things, but even that we will do with the aim of serving the Lord through that particular activity or through that uh, name repetition, japa, stotras, and other things. So somehow that association or love towards the Ishta should not be lost. That is why Satkarya Sevito Dhrida Bhumi. So to Dirgha Kala, for a long time, it becomes firmly grounded. Our devotion becomes firmly grounded by constant long efforts with great love for the goal to be attained. If you worship a personal God, if you just concentrate on yoga as a science, then it is the lack of vrittis which show us the Purusha. When we quieten Prakriti, Prakriti is what gives us waves. The Sattvic Manas, the Tamasic and the Rajasic mind, they give rise to waves. But when it becomes Sattvic and then it goes beyond the gunas and it becomes perfectly calm, and if we love that state, if we really want to reach the Purusha and not allow the disturbances of Prakriti to affect us, then it becomes firmly grounded. Dhrida Bhumi, that joy, that peace, that bliss, and that uh, constant repetition of one thought or maybe absence of thought. These doesn't come in a day. Swamiji says they don't come in a day, but it comes by constant practice. That is why 14th verse says, Satu Dirgha Kala, for a long time, Nairantarya, continuously, Satkara Sevita, with great love it has to be cultivated. The name of the Lord has to be repeated with great love, continuously, uninterruptedly, for a long time. So that is Satu Dirgha Kala Nairantarya Satkarya Sevita. Now 15 is, this is Abhyasa. The first 13 and 14 sutras told us what is Abhyasa, to repeat. But along with that, Vairagya has to be practiced. What is this Vairagya? Drishtanu, this is a definition which Patanjali is giving of Vairagya. We learned what Vairagya was. We also discussed what Vairagya is. We discussed it in the gospel class also, where Sri Ramakrishna was trying to explain this Abhyasa and Vairagya. Here also, Patanjali gives his definition of Vairagya. So it is very important to understand, to know the true meaning of what Vairagya is. Drishtanu Shravika Vishaya Vitrishnasya Vashikarana Sangya Vairagyam. This is a long sutra, but what it means, Drishtanu Shravika, whatever we have heard, whatever we have seen, Drishta means whatever we have seen, whatever we have heard, Vishaya Vitrishna, a type of forgetfulness, deliberate forgetfulness. It's not that we lose memory, but we force ourselves not to think, not to ponder, not to keep the idle brain. That's why they say the idle brain is the devil's workshop. If we allow all the past seen things, listen, whatever we had seen, whatever we had listened, many of them were painful experiences of the past. If we allow them to hijack our mind and come back to memory, that is to be prevented. That is Vairagya. Vitrishnasya, Vashikara Sanya. So, the effect which comes to those, see, they either, if we have given up the thirst after objects, Vairagya means Vashikara Sanya, I mean, the thirst after objects, either seen or heard, and which wills to control the object, is non-attachment. Vashikara Sanya means the moment we think of certain things, suppose we think of money, we want to control that money. We want the will to be employed, not for practicing the name of the Lord, but we use that willpower to acquire something which is temporary, not something which is permanent. And the thirst or the will to control those objects, we know those objects are not going, they are not permanent, but somehow the mind grasps and tries to hold on to those objects. And when it is taken away from us, we feel miserable. That is what Alexander felt. So, these Abhyasa and Vairagya have to be practiced simultaneously. So, all the objects, the thirst after objects which are seen or heard in the past, which come to our mental plane again and again and disturb us, that has which develops in us a false or a wrong will to control those objects, which vanish, which because of their temporary nature vanish from our mind. That is non-attachment. That effect, Drishtanu Shravika Vishaya Vitrishna Nasya Vashikara Sanya Vairagyam. So we try to give up not only to the seen or the heard things of the past, but we also give up the willpower to control those things. We say, no, we don't want. We have enough problems now. We have enough things at our hand now. We don't want to bring those things of the past and try to control the things that we see. There's so many things. The moment we see a car, we want to get it. We want to control it. Control means what? To possess it. The moment we see another thing, we want to possess that. Then we see something else, we want to possess that. So the willpower is slowly used in trying to acquire things which we see and we hear. We hear that it's very good to have this particular model of the car. So The mind is always trying to will. Then finally one day, the mind says, now you have to buy this car. You have to get this car. Somebody has praised it so much. We have heard about it. We have not perhaps used it, but we have seen it and we have heard about it. So we want to use it now. We want to possess it. So we go and buy it. Our willpower comes into force. So Drishtanu Shravika, we have heard and seen, and that has developed a strong will. So to not to have that will to control attachment, but rather have the will to repeat, to hold on to the eternal, is known as Vairagya. Vairagyam. There are two motive powers for our actions always: what we see ourselves and the experience of others. Swamiji says both of these things put motivate us to do actions. First of all, what we see. And even if we have not seen, somebody comes and praises certain things. Oh, you should do that. Oh, you should see this movie, or you should do this, you should do that, or such a wonderful thing. We do not even know whether it is really good or bad. But because somebody has told, it's the experience of others that also can motivate our. All our actions are motivated by what we see, the reactive mind, and what we experience, or what we hear about those things through others' experience. We may not have, or it's not necessary for us to have the experience. But if somebody says, "Oh, it is very common, you should also have this," so we feel like possessing that thing. So these two forces, what we see ourselves or what we hear ourselves, and or what we hear from others, the experience of others, they throw the mind into various waves. So renunciation, vairagya, is the power to battle against these forces and say, no, I know I have diabetes, and there are certain things, and somebody says, oh no, it is okay, you just have something, it doesn't matter. And then the power to battle that and prevent ourselves, our wills, from getting attached to those objects and eating it, that is vairagya. I mean, one part of the mind says it is not good, the other part of the mind says, no, 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 it's okay, you eat. So renunciation is the power of battling against these forces. The forces which make you feel like possessing or having those things, either eating or possessing, though even just possessing, whether you use it or not. You just want to possess. You want to possess those cars. You want to possess that gadget just because you like it. You have heard of it from somebody or you have seen it yourself. So, to hold the mind in check, you have to battle against these forces. The sense control, what we mean by sense control is that the senses and the reactive mind tells us, oh, you see, this is there, have it. This is there, have it, keep it. Whether you use it or not, the whether it is temporary or permanent, still we should have it. So the more things we have, the more we find it difficult to keep the mind in check. So their renunciation is what we want, Swamiji says. I am passing through a street. Swamiji gives a wonderful example. He says, I am passing through a street and a man comes and takes away my watch. I mean, he may be a robber or he may be a friend. That is my own experience. I see it myself, and it immediately throws my chitta into a wave and taking the form of the anger. We hold something something very dear. We possess certain things or certain objects which are very dear to us, and suddenly one day we find either it has been stolen or somebody has taken it away from us, grabbed it. Immediately I get angry because I lose it, and I get upset. Why have I developed this habit of losing it? Even if you don't, somebody does not grab it, but you leave it somewhere because you are absent-minded, you have a tendency to get angry on yourself. It throws my chitta into a wave taking the form of anger. And Swamiji says, allow not that to come. If you cannot prevent that, then you are nothing. If you can prevent that, you have vairagya. So he is defining vairagya in a beautiful way. He says, not allowing the reactive mind to dominate yourself, the reactive mind or the lower manas, you have to exert the chitta at that time, exert the buddhi. The buddhi, the chitta should take the form of the buddhi and say that, oh, after all, what is there? It was a temporary thing. It just, as it came, it has gone away. Today or tomorrow, it would have anyway gone. So they don't mind. As Janaka said, even if the whole Mithila is taken away from me, I have no fear. Because he had possessed the knowledge of Brahman, which was for him more valuable than his own kingdom, the Mithila. So even though he was a king, even though he possessed so many things, he had that vairagya or detachment. So vairagya doesn't mean to have less things, but not have attachment towards everything. Because however much we try, we have our body, we have our objects, there are certain basic things which we have. You may not have anything, you may just have, that's why Thakur used to say, a person may have a kamandalu, a small pot, the beggars who, but he will be terribly attached. He may not have $1 billion like a multi-billionaire, but at the same time he is attached to the few things that he has. So that is not Vairagya. Vairagya means whether you possess those things or not, whether you keep those things or not, you may be in contact with them, but they do not attach you. You restrain your mind from getting attached. The sense organs or the sense objects create an impression on the mind, but the buddhi says, don't worry, it is not yours. It is a temporary thing. Let it come and go. You don't bother. You don't run after it. That is Vairagya. That is how Vairagya is defined. If you don't allow, if somebody says something, somebody takes away something, and if your mind doesn't, your mind remains calm and collected and does not throw the chitta into a wave of anger, Swamiji says that means you have had Vairagya. Only if a person has Vairagya, then he will be detached. And when he is detached, he can do Abhyasa. Abhyasa and Vairagya, you have to Chitta vritti nirodha. The vrittis of the mind can be lessened, if not totally stopped. Again, the experience of the worldly minded teaches us that sense enjoyments are the highest ideal. If you ask a worldly people, he said, no, I don't care what yoga says. I don't bother. For me, the highest ideal is sense enjoyments. As long as my senses have some vitality in that, I will enjoy. Let the world say anything. These are tremendous temptations, Swamiji says. To deny them and not allow the mind to come to a wave form with regard to those temptations is called as renunciation. To control these twofold motive powers arising from my own experience and from the experience of others has been described by Patanjali in this sutra as Vairagya. So his definition of Vairagya is to control the twofold motive powers. Every motive, every action has a particular motive. Without motive, there cannot be any action. So to control the twofold motive powers of allowing the mind to come into a wave form with regard to the sense objects and the sense enjoyments, either from my own experience or from the experience of others. Somebody telling you it is good, wonderful, just enjoy once, and thus prevent the chitta from being governed by them. So you should be under the control of your chitta. You should decide how the chitta should behave, when it should get angry, or how it can control its anger. These should be controlled by me and not I by them. Swamiji says the manas should not control us. It is like a person walking with a dog. If the dog runs here and there, the dog is controlling the person, not the person controlling the dog. It should be the other way around. That we should have control over our mind, not the mind should have control. So, Vairagya means not allowing the mind to have control of, to have our control. We should not be controlled by them. So, prevent the chitta, prevent our mind, the mind stuff, from being governed by those sense objects and the other thoughts. That is Vairagya. The, the mental strength uh, uh, that exert the exertion of mental strength to not to allow these things chitta from being governed by them, not allowing our mind to be sold to these objects, not allowing our mind to be under the control of these temptations. That mental strength is known as Vairagya, renunciation. And Swamiji ends this sutra by saying, Vairagya is the only way to freedom. There is no second way. Abhyasa is necessary, but without Vairagya, Abhyasa also will not be fruitful. To be free, one has to have both Abhyasa and Vairagya. The Gita also says that. Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tannirodha. And as Patanjali says, Sri Krishna also tells Arjuna that it is through Abhyasa and Vairagya that the mind, which is so difficult to control, it's like a wind. It's so difficult to control or contain the wind. So also uh, the mental waves are coming, constantly coming. So you, to control these waves of the mind, Vairagya is the only way, and that is the only way you can be really free from the clutches of the world, which are to which you may be living in the world, but if you are in the clutches of the world, like the water should not be in the boat. Water, you boat can be on the top of water. So we should be controlling these things, not the things should not control us. Everything that we see, if we run after that, that means these things are controlling us. These temptations are controlling us. Whether we have seen it ourselves or whether somebody has told us a wonderful story about that, or a wonderful, he has praised those things, then our mind becomes restless and the chitta forms so many waves to acquire that. So prevention of that is the only way. Prevention of that kind of control, vairagya, is the only way to freedom. So along with abhyasa, practice of the holy name, vairagya also should be practiced. So that is how these things are explained. Now we will come to the next verse, or we will begin it next time. 16th, 16th Sutra. Tatparam Purusha Khyate Gunavaitrishnyam. This extreme non-attachment. What is the use? Now 16th Sutra tells us what is the use of that Vairagya. What will Vairagya give us? So as Buddha said, you are more unselfish than me. I have given up the temporary things for the permanent. And you have given up the permanent for the temporary. He says it is like, he gave a wonderful example. There is a lot of dirt lying in the street. No fool will bring the dirt and put it in his, trying to clean that dirt and put it in the house. So Buddha said, I have cleaned my house of the dirt, the temporary things I have cleaned from my mind, and my mind is now clear. I have cleaned the dirt, and in its place I have brought the wonderful things, the love for God, devotion, that is like a gold mine. So my vairagya is nothing compared to yours, because I have given up the dirt for good things. Whereas you have given up the good things for the dirt. You have accumulated all the uh, rajas, tamasic and rajasic things. Whereas I have even given away sattva. All these things which are like kachara, I like dirt for me. And I have got the treasure. That is the Satchidananda Brahman or moksha, the mukti, Jivan mukti. So, Swamiji says, Tat param purusha khyatir guna vaitrishnam. Guna vaitrishnam means freedom from these gunas, from the Prakriti's gunas which constitute of tamas, rajas and sattva. So these three gunas influence a person to go after gross and subtle things. If one is tamasic, he will go after more gross things. If he is having more rajas, he will go after subtle things, name, fame, praise, and some kind of power. He will go after that because he is rajasic. But if he is tamasic, he will be grabbing at things. He thinks the gross things are very useful. They can save his, they can save him or give him eternal life. So he just grabs to those things. And one day somebody comes and drops it, or maybe misses it or loses it, and then he gets upset, or it is grabbed away from him. then he becomes miserable. So, according to yoga philosophy, the whole of nature consists of these three gunas: tamas, rajas, and sattva. So, first we have to understand what this purusha is. Guna vaitrishnam, the renunciation of the gunas, tat param, param, that purusha khyati. Khyati means vritti, the constant vritti of the purusha comes when you renounce the lower prakriti. To hold on to the purusha, to hold on to the blissful, powerful, eternal purusha, and to create the wave, khyati means wave, to create that wave and subdue the tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic waves. That is, according to yoga philosophy, the whole goal of yoga. That purusha, what the purusha is, what the purusha's qualities are, what are the prakriti's qualities, what is darkness, what is ignorance. To leave prakriti and align yourself with purusha is the goal of life. So we will discuss it in the next class. Now we will have some question answers if there are some questions. Yeah. One question has been asked. Apart from abhyasa, how can we cultivate our love for our goal, Ishta, while doing japa? Love can be created only through abhyasa. If you are how do you love a particular object? Because of constant contact. If somebody continuously tells you gold is good, gold is good, money is good, money is good, money, you always think of money, then you start loving it. So, love for the goal increases only through abhyasa. There is no other way. One is abhyasa and another is vairagya. Vairagya doesn't allow you to have abhyasa. Vairagya means if you don't give up running after these silly things, gross things, then you don't develop love for the subtle, you don't love for the Ishta. So, abhyasa is the only way, but the second way, as you asked, when we do japa, that is abhyasa, but side by side, to the extent it is possible for us, we have to practice this vairagya also. If you do japa and at the same time run after these objects, then abhyasa alone will not help, vairagya alone will not help. If you have vairagya, if you have given up everything but don't have anything to hold on to, if you don't do abhyasa, if you don't love God, then that vairagya can be painful. You have given those things away, but you have not acquired that love for God. So both should be there. So to cultivate love for the goal or love for the Ishta, abhyasa is one way, vairagya is the other way. Vairagya is also necessary, abhyasa also will complement that vairagya and give you the desire to reach the goal or the highest. Now there's one more question which says smritis, memories, arise from impressions, samskaras from previous birth. Is that right? No, it's not just previous birth. Samskaras can be of this birth also. The previous birth samskaras may be may not be very much apparent to us. It may not be apparent to us, but definitely the memories or the smritis of this life are very much apparent to us. When certain things happen, we try to recollect our childhood or our uh, youthful days when certain samskaras which we had, certain habits which we had, they come up as vrittis. They come up as smritis, memories. So don't think memories are only of the past lives. So you have asked the question whether they are impressions or samskaras from the previous lives. No, it is not so. It can be of this life, it can be of the past life, or it can be of several past lives. Not one, just one past life. So many past lives. So smritis can come. That is why smriti is as a vritti. You have to continuously not bother about the old smritis. Forget it. There's a lot of, you don't have to open the Pandora's box. Only cultivate good thoughts so that the new smritis, the new memories which you have, That should instigate you to do continuous japa or positive thoughts, continuously induce those positive thoughts so that it can subdue or negate the negative smritis, whether it is of this life or whether it is of the previous life. It really doesn't matter. Those all the negative smritis have to be removed. Now there is one more question, the last question. How does one separate ourselves from our reactive mind? If the reaction takes place in the split second, how can we develop vairagya? Yeah, it is the reactive mind. That is the whole. That is the whole struggle. How to prevent. How to prevent our connection with the reactive mind. There are two ways. One is to not allow the reactive mind, not align the chitta, not allow the will to attach itself to the reactive mind. Just observe it, but don't react. That is one way. But the other way is to align yourself with the buddhi. So when Swamiji said your mind should be rational, always it should be alert. Buddhi means alertness. If we just become less alert, the reactive mind grabs our attention, and our will and our chitta takes the shape of the reactive mind. So the only way to do it is to align yourself with buddhi. That is facilitated by nirjan vas, by solitude, by holy company, by reading good books, by doing japa. There are so many ways of doing that. So uh, there is no question of separating. When you attach yourself with the buddhi, it automatically you're separating yourself from the reactive mind. If you say that my reactive mind is always giving me negative thoughts, viparyaya, vikalpa vritti, so I have to go against that. But that is not the fact. When you go towards the east, you're automatically going away from the west. So you don't have to bother about separating yourself. When you attach yourself uh, and practice a little vairagya, when you do abhyasa, you may think it is a split second, but even the split second reactions can be stopped by a continuous undercurrent of japa. The undercurrent of japa which you do prevents these reactions. It will not be stopped immediately. The reactive mind will not vanish because it has become a habit for years and years and years since childhood and our previous birth. No parent or no teacher has told us what this reactive mind is. We are learning about it now. We think the only mind that exists is the reactive mind. The child reacts and the parent pamper that child. Oh, my child is always getting angry. My child is, oh, he doesn't like this, he doesn't like that. So we are in a way supporting the reactive mind of the child. So he thinks this is what our parents want me to do. When I feel upset, I have to get angry, and then I get the object. I have to cry, I have to make a fuss, I have to act. Then the child mistakes itself. I mean, makes the mistake of aligning itself with the reactive mind for some temporary benefit. But the parents don't even bother to tell that this kind of reaction, anger, and all these reactions which are coming because you don't get something. You don't get a toy, you react. You don't get what you want, you react. You quarrel, you fight, you envy others. All these things happen because our reactive mind is the only mind that has been trained by our teachers, by our parents, by the whole society. Nobody bothers to teach the child. That's why Swamiji says, if I had the chance to go back to kindergarten, get my education again. Swamiji says, I am so uh, sad that I had such a stupid kind of education in my childhood. If I had a chance to educate myself, I would not follow the system which is being followed now. He says, now this system of education, the the promotion of this reactive mind. The education that we get is just promoting us or just facilitating our reactive mind. Our parents, our teachers, and our neighbors, everybody, our peers, our friends, everybody is trying to nourish this reactive mind. And they think a person who reacts, who immediately reacts, He's a wonderful person. He gives back, he quarrels, he fights and dominates over others. And we think that type of reactive person is a very strong person. In fact, he is a very weak person. That is why there is an English proverb, the barking dogs never bite. The dogs which are very quiet, they are very powerful. But those dogs which bark know it for certain that they will never bite. They just make a noise. And that is what we are unfortunately teaching our children. So, to separate ourselves from the reactive mind, uh, we have to align ourselves with the buddhi, the higher mind. And that comes only through concentration. Through these four techniques of nirjan vas, solitude, we never tell the child to stay to himself, just be quiet. How many of our parents, how many of our teachers give this training in meditation? How many of us tell our children, learn to sit quiet? People think we are mad. Arey, why should you tell, let the child be restless, let it run after things? And we spoil it. And when he grows up, he will criticize you, says, my mind is so restless because of you. You never taught me how to control the mind. When he understands it is a problem, when his emotions, when his restlessness, when his suffocation, when all the things, negative things, depression, depressive thoughts, all these things, when they are out of control, the adult finds that there was something wrong in my education. And that is why if he starts thinking, he will blame his education. That's why Swamiji says, if I had my education all over again, I would first learn how to control my mind and then acquire knowledge. Acquiring knowledge is not the goal of life, but controlling the mind and then using that controlled mind to control other things. Right now, we are teaching ourselves, our children, and everybody else how to get controlled by the other people, by how to get controlled by the temporary things. So that is what we have to prevent. Now, there is one more question. I will finish with that. What are some pitfalls in establishing good habits and how do we overcome them? That is one question. What does practicing japa with love look like in practice? Okay, I'll start with the first. What are the pitfalls in establishing good habits? Very simple. The only pitfall is being cultivating bad habits. Cultivating bad habits come as pitfalls in establishing good habits. So you can't have both. You can't have good habits and at the same time go on doing bad, go on having the company of people with bad habits. If you have satsanga of people with bad habits, these are the pitfalls. You will be induced, the thought waves of that person will induce you to develop those similar bad habits. So, these are the main pitfalls: lack of good company, lack of good reading or good practices, lack of good practices like japa and positive thinking and all those things. So the only way to overcome is to avoid. That is why Thakur talks of solitude. He tells us to go to solitude. In fact, Latu Maharaj said, if you have nothing else to do, don't go and gossip with people. Just go and sleep. Even sleeping is much better. You just go and lie down. If you can't meditate or be in solitude, just go and lie down. At least you will not get negative influences. You will get at least get some good sleep. Some nidra vritti will be there. So the pitfalls are avoiding the contact with the bad company or people who induce bad thoughts in you. And to only way to overcome is to avoid them, vairagya, and to abhyasa. And if possible, in that solitude, try to practice good thoughts consciously, not mechanically, consciously. And the last question is, what does practicing japa with love look in practice? So there's no question of looking. It's not something which you can see. It has to be felt within yourself. Now, if I take a mala and I sit for japa and make a big announcement that you see I'm sitting here for 4 hours or 5 hours and make a big show of it, you may not really love the job you're doing. You're doing it just to get some name and fame. So practicing japa with love, normally it is done in a very secret way, unknown to others. So there is no way to know what practicing japa with love uh, it cannot be. You can see, of course, there are people, when Sri Ramakrishna used to remember or repeat the name of the Lord, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the great saints, Mirabai, if you hear the songs, you get an idea when just listening to their songs, though they are sung now by somebody else. Even listening to the songs and trying to meditate on the meaning, it shows what kind of wonderful emotions are generated in us. So, practicing japa with love, similarly, those are songs, they have music, they have other ways of making you love that. First, you love the music, but you don't love the spirit of the song. Then you slowly love the spirit of the song, which is the main thing. That is why Swamiji never appreciated if one was a great musician, but he did not have an understanding of the meaning of these wonderful songs. He might sing Mirabai's song, but he has to have the love, at least partially have the love of Mirabai to understand her songs about Krishna. Otherwise, you may be a good musician and may sing one of the Mirabai songs with so much excellence that people will think, oh, how much devotion he has. But in fact, he may not have that love. So it is very difficult to know how that japa with love looks like in practice. It is not a question, it is something to be experienced oneself, by oneself, not to be shown to others. So that is the idea. The question which you have asked, what does practicing japa with love look like in practice? What it looks like cannot be described. It can only be felt. It's like telling somebody who has not eaten a particular sweet, a laddu. If you say laddu is a wonderful sweet, how can you say how sweet it is? Unless you say you take this, you eat it. Only when you eat that sweet, you know the sweetness. So similarly, practicing japa with love will be known when you actually develop love for the Lord and practice it. Then you know how it looks like or how it feels. You cannot say how it looks like, how it feels, or how do you experience that. What is the experience you get when you do that? Okay, so I take your leave now. No more questions are there. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.